right, guys, we are in Subunit 3, Lesson 2. Yesterday during our Google Meet, we did Activity 2 and Activity 3. In case you missed the Google Meet or you've not done this work yet, I am going to go over it. If you've already done this, then you'll be able to skip ahead. So in Activity 2, we are still working with the text Going Solo by Roald Dahl. And in class on Monday and Tuesday, we read a lot about when Dahl arrived to Greece and his interaction with the corporal and interaction with the corporal and how his dialogue helped us understand that character. So now we're going to have a different encounter. We're going to have an encounter with a bandit, and you are going to read or listen. There's the listening button up here to these paragraphs. And after you're done, you're going to list 3 things that you learned about David Koch in paragraph 41. So that would be, I believe, this first paragraph. Yes, first paragraph. So from I was to share a tent to begin to ask him a few questions. So try to list off 3 things that you learned about him in that first paragraph. And then let us know if you think that David Koch seems like an important character in Dahl's story. Make sure that you explain that. Now that you're done, click Hand In and move on to Activity 3. Okay, so it says in paragraph 41, does Dahl rely more on showing or telling to communicate the type of person that Koch was? So again, guys, we're only talking about this very first paragraph. Is he showing us what David Koch is like, or is he telling us? So choose your option there. Then in the rest of the paragraphs, does Dahl rely more on showing or telling to communicate what kind of person David Koch was? Does he use showing or does he use telling for all the paragraphs after paragraph 41? Put your answer there. And when you're done with that, go ahead and click Next. Okay, so in paragraph 41, Dahl declares that David Koch is warm-hearted, brave, and generous. Does he support the description in the rest of the scene? So in the first paragraph, he tells us that Koch is warm-hearted, brave, and generous. Where do we actually see those things happen later in the text? So where is David Koch warm-hearted later on in this text? So you'll need to copy and paste evidence into here. Brave, copy and paste evidence into here. And generous, copy and paste evidence to here. And then finally, you are going to come up with your own adjective, a character trait to describe David Koch. And then you need to give a piece of text evidence on this side. Pause the video and do this now. Okay, when you're done with that, hit Next. So now we're going to learn a little bit about flashback and flash forward, okay? A flashback is when an author interrupts a scene to narrate something that happened in the past. That's why it's called flashback. A flash forward is when an author interrupts a scene to narrate something that will happen in the future. So looking at paragraph 41, does Dahl include a flashback or a flash forward in this paragraph? Where does it appear in the text? Okay, so tell me if there's a flash forward or a flash back, and then give text evidence to show if it's a flash forward or flashback. Then think about, why do you think Dahl chose to jump in time? How does knowing this information change the way you read the dialogue between Dahl and David? All right, now that you're done with that, go ahead and click next, and we are on activity 4. So remember that we talked a lot about the corporal, and we have a good idea of what the corporal is like and what his personality is like. Now that we've read this text today, we have a good idea of what David Cook is like and what his personality is like. So we're going to think about, how Dahl in his writing, he put those interactions almost back to back. And let's think about what that does to help us understand his story and why do you think he chose to put those interactions back to back. So to begin, let's summarize what the corporal said to Dahl and what do we notice that he did not say but probably thought. Okay, so that would be this first section. So we can go back and skim it again. He was the one talking about it's come all the way from Egypt and all the way across the Med for the sodden country, and all for what? What's going to happen to it? Crash, bang, wallop, shot down in flames, exploding in the air. This kite won't last a week in this place. So if we wanted to summarize what he said, he's pretty much telling Dahl that the situation is hopeless. And then it asks us maybe what did he not say, but what he probably thought. He did not say specifically that Dahl would die, but when he says the plane will go down in flames, we can assume he believes Dahl will not make it either. He didn't say, hey man, you're gonna die, but he probably was thinking that. Now, on the other hand, how would we summarize what David Cook said to Dahl? And what did he probably not say, but probably thought? A lot here, he's giving him advice about the plane. We just read that. So mostly, David Cook tells Dahl that they are also in a bad situation. He doesn't tell Dahl that he will die, but he also doesn't tell Dahl that he will live. He knows that it's going to be a tough fight, right? So it doesn't say straight up, hey, you're definitely going to make it through it, but also doesn't say you're not going to make it through it, but probably knows that it's going to be difficult for Dahl. Okay. So then I wrote that in the wrong place. Sorry, guys. Number 3 says, what is the biggest similarity between the corporal and David Cook? Well, thinking about that, I would probably say they are both honest, right? They are not sugarcoating the situation, right? It's not like Cook is saying like, oh man, you'll be fine. Like they're both making it pretty clear it's a hopeless situation, and not telling Dahl that he'll for sure get out of it. And then it says, analyze how the text makes distinctions between the individuals. What's the biggest difference between the corporal and David Cook? I think there's a lot of differences between them. The corporal is a pessimist, right? He automatically thinks that the plane and Dahl won't make it. But David is an optimist. He believes there is a chance and wants to give Doll the best opportunity possible. That's why he's trying to give him all those tips. Okay. So if you need more time to type any of these out, you can always pause that video after I typed each one to make sure that you have those answers. Hit hand in when you're done, and we're moving on to activity 5. So now you guys are going to analyze the impact of the connected scenes between Corporal and David Cook. Go ahead and click next. And it says, in writing Going Solo, Dahl chose to put the scene with David Cook almost immediately after the scene with the Corporal. What impact does putting these scenes back to back have on the reader's understanding? Okay, so pretty much what that is asking you is, why do you think Dahl put these scenes back to back? What was the point? So when you do this writing, you're going to want to first restate the question. So you're going to say, there is an impact made on the reader when he puts the scene with the Corporal back to back with the scene with David Cook. Okay, that makes it very clear that that we know what you're going to write about. There's an impact made on the reader. Okay, so now you're going to tell me what the impact is. What is the impact? Then you need to give a piece of text evidence that shows the impact. Okay, and then restate the idea in the final sentence. So that is the order of this response right here. It also should remind you of RACE. Restate, answer, cite and explain, and then RACEs, restate your sentence again. Okay, so work on that. That should take you a good amount of time to come up with a good answer and give a good piece of text evidence. So pause the video now, follow those instructions, and give your answer. All right, now that you're done with that writing, you're going to skip the share. You're going to move on to the exit ticket. You need to read this piece of student writing, and then you are going to select the claim that best summarizes the difference between the Corporal and David Cook as presented in the student's writing. So not your own thoughts, but what this student said. So it says, the Corporal talked about the destruction of planes rather than the men in the planes. He focused on how difficult it would be to get another plane that took thousands of hours to build. He didn't even pay attention to the fact that Dahl would be the one in the plane that won't last 1 week. David Koch, however, offered Dahl as much advice as he could give him, even though he felt that his advice wasn't enough to guarantee Dahl's safety. In between stating that the situation was absolutely hopeless and telling Dahl there was no way he could teach him how to shoot down a German in one lesson, David Koch still tried to explain how to aim the airplane's guns and where Dahl should position his plane to avoid getting shot down. So out of these options, which one best summarizes the difference between the Corporal and David Cook? Is it A, while both men knew the situation was hopeless, the Corporal and David Cook had different reactions? B, while both men knew the situation was hopeless, David Koch tried to help Dahl while the Corporal focused on the loss of planes? C, both the Corporal and David Cook were very concerned about the hopelessness of the situation, so they responded in similar ways. Or David Koch taught Doll how to fly and the corporal was worried about what would happen to the planes. Which one of those best summarizes these ideas? Select your answer and click Hand In. And that is it for this lesson. You'll now go on to lesson 3.